Hello and welcome to Cycles of Time, your weekly guide to what's happening on Earth as we make our revolutionary journey around the sun. For time immemorial, our human ancestors have created myths and meanings to help us adapt and thrive as seasons change. Join me each week to explore the intersections of these ancient cycles, from the indigenous medicine wheel to the pagan wheel of the year, the Babylonian and Greek zodiac to the I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes. I'm your host, Alison Dale, and this is the Cycles of Time podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Cycles of Time weekly forecast. This is the week of December 9th to 15th, 2024, and this episode is titled, Your Ego is a Wild Animal. What does that mean? I landed on that title after so many arrows just kind of kept pointing in different directions, and then they all just wiggled their way into a little braid, and we're like, bing, here, this is what it's all about. I've been sick since I got back from New York, like the day before I left New York last week, got hit by something, and then, double masked up and got myself home, and my family and I have all just been kind of laying low and in bed, sleeping a lot over the past week, and that's also given me a chance to read a lot and to have a lot of conversations online with various people, and through texts and stuff like that, as I was just in like horizontal mode. And so I am excited to expose where this conversation has unfolded from, because I think it's kind of interesting and it's very personal. So I will say that this week, as far as the Cycles of Time wheel goes and astrology and human design, this week is lighting up a lot of my planets and points. And so I might be a little, I'm just channeling this through, and it might feel a little all over the place, or it might just land. We'll have to see. But I don't really have any notes, and I'm just going forward with what's coming through. A lot of conversations and thoughts and dreams lately. I'll start off by just sharing this week's highlights. This week we're transiting through the last full week of Sagittarius season. Next week, on the 21st, the winter solstice will usher in Capricorn season, and we're transiting through the last couple of full gates of Sagittarius season, which are Gate 26, the gate of the Egoist, known as the taming power of the great in the I Ching. And then on the weekend, from Friday through Sunday and into next week, the sun will be transiting through Gate 11, which is the gate of ideas or idealism. And that day, or during that time of that gate's transit, the moon will be opposite in the sky for a full moon in Gemini on Sunday. And that's going to be in Gate 12, the gate of caution. So pretty much just moving through these last couple gates of Sagittarius, the Egoist and ideas, and then ending the week with a full moon in Gemini in the gate of caution. This week's themes are tame your ego, pause and feel your heart, and feed your ego. We're going to talk a lot about ego today, and it's going to be so fun. And also how to tame it and why we might want to do that. In the medicine wheel, we are in winter. We're in the north. If you look at the chart on astrosomatics.substack.com or on Cycles of Time podcast on Instagram, you can see this chart pinned to the top, and it is, all of the different wheels of the year and how they kind of intersect with each other. So we are almost pointing directly north as we enter the winter solstice time and Yule next week. But we're up in the north side, and north represents the element wind, elderhood in the wheel of the life cycle, and the spiritual path. Whereas, spring and east has represented the physical, south and summer has represented the mental, west has represented the emotional and kind of adulthood, and now we enter spiritual and elderhood in the north. In the Wuxing cycle, the Taoist 5-element cycle, we are in the element of water, the receptive yin time of year. We are almost at Yule in the pagan wheel of the year. We're kind of feel far away from Samhain and Halloween time at this point, and really close to Yule, the Yule tide, which is happening on the 21st with the solstice. The zodiac season is Sagittarius until December 21st, and we're in the moon phase, full moon in Gemini. And then, those human design gates one more time are gate 26 from Monday to Friday, the gate of the Egoist, and then from Friday into Sunday is gate 11, the gate of Idealism or ideas. So let's start out with the gate of the Egoist. And I say it's personal because I have my south node and my unconscious earth in this gate. And so it's a place where I've been it holds a little bit of shame maybe for me, a little bit of like south node stuff is occasionally kind of like, oh man, I gotta like usher that out of my life. That's, your north node is like your sole purpose, and your south node then on the opposite part of the sky is oftentimes kind of like, ooh, you're like, ooh, what is that? And when you think about, the way that the nodes are often described is the head of the dragon and the tail of the dragon. And the head would be a place where, we eat, we're hungry, it feeds us. We're hungry for it and it feeds us. And so the north node is kind of, this place of like where your soul is going after and seeking so that it can gain what it needs to gain in this incarnation. And then the tail of the dragon, the south node, would be the place of excretion and the place of release, the place where we, it kind of moves on its own terms. It's like it's a place where we're familiar with the energy, and we're almost so familiar with it that we're on autopilot, and we have a lot of patterning there. So it's a place that is known as somewhere that we might want to release certain patterns to make room for what we're hungry for, which is that opposite gate, that opposite sign. So my south node is in Sagittarius, and it's there along with some powerful outer planets. I had Jupiter and Uranus in the gate of power that began Sagittarius season. And I have Neptune, both my conscious and unconscious Neptune, in the gate of idealism, which is we're ending the week with this week. And then my south node is in the gate of the egoist. And so I have a lot of, when you look at my chart, ever since I first saw my birth chart, I looked at the whole picture and was like, there's a concentration in Sagittarius over there in the 5th house for me, which is the house of creativity and self-expression and art and children and a lot of things that are related to the sign of Leo, kind of that like lion-hearted expression. So I was kind of stoked because I, have always considered myself an artist. I love art. I love creativity. So I remember being like, cool, yeah, like power centaur in the 5th house of art, and like, yeah, awesome. Got Jupiter there, it's lucky. I've got Uranus there, that's like some cool lightning bolts. I've got Neptune there, which is like dreams, and it was like, yeah, loving this stuff. And then I learned about the south node, and I was like, ooh, what is that? I have all this powerful stuff there, and also south node, like this is what I need to release, and look to the other side of the chart, which is Gemini, and Gemini to me has always been like, ooh, a little bit, I don't know, I've had like issue with Gemini in my life, probably because it's my North Node, in the sense that I'm like, I can't quite get there. And Gemini's social, chatty, community oriented, like neighborly, just close to home, buzzy, like a butterfly, social butterfly. And I've been more the like armchair philosopher than the social butterfly in my life, true to my South Node and stellium of planets in the fifth in Sagittarius. So it felt a little like a jab, like, gotta go for the Gemini in the 11th house, which is also about like society and socializing. And so this is like my little personal tale, to say that, this is an interesting time to be looking into what these specifics of Sagittarius are for me, because I've always related to Sagittarius in a general way. But when I break them down into these individual energies of these human design gates and I Ching hexagrams, I find a lot more nuanced information, and it's been like mind-blowing for me, like truly mind-blowing. I'm always like, when I have my guests on the show, I'm always so excited to see when somebody resonates, like their sun gate gives them more information about their personhood and how they shine than just their sign did. And when I see that happening, I'm like, hell yeah, that's so cool. And it definitely happened for me with my sun gate back in September, but I didn't really like look ahead to this onslaught of planets in Sagittarius and say, this is going to be a deeply learning time about myself through Sagittarius season and the cycles of time. I just didn't really think about it too much. But now that I'm here, now that we're here, I've just been kind of beside myself as far as what I've been able to learn about my own self, about my patterns and my tendencies and my blind spots and my dreams in the sense of Neptune, and my like what lights me up and brings me luck. And these really big concepts have been kind of flowing in. And so thanks for being here as I entertain that and I have a conversation with myself as it comes through. I mean, when the sun transits through each sign and through each gate, it really does give illumination and radiance and shine to the areas of the zodiac or the areas of the I Ching wheel that it's shining on. And to be in a deep investigation of that is like just really powerful when it hits. It just really is. And for me, like, learning about my South Node being in the gate of the Egoist, and then my design South Node. So, in human design, if you're not familiar, you have your one birth chart from when you're born, and then there's another birth chart from 88 days prior when you're kind of at the end of the second trimester, beginning of the third trimester in the womb. And so that's another set of kind of more embodied unconscious elements that are added to the chart. And so when I look at that, I see that my design South Node is in the gate of Idealism, and my personality South Node is in the Egoist. So I have both of the gates of this week are South Node gates for me. And the other side of the sky is my North Node gates, where the full moon will be. So that's kind of where I'm coming from this week. And I also have Neptune in the gate of Idealism, both my conscious and unconscious Neptune, because it's a slow-moving outer planet. So it was in the same gate when I was born, and also 88 days before I was born. But Neptune is there, and I'm kind of on a Neptune kick right now in my life. I have a lot of Neptunian things going on, so I'm fascinated to dig into this place. Another really cool thing about the gate 11 for the world at large is actually the gate of the galactic center, and that is located at 27 degrees Sagittarius, so it's in gate 11, and this is a significant point in the zodiac and human design wheel because it is all about a kind of galactic connection and a consciousness upgrade and a deep understanding of like the bigger picture. It's a very Sagittarian thing. And essentially what the galactic center is it is a supermassive black hole which contains the mass of about 4 million suns, and it is a massive gravitational force that's like the center of our gravity that they believe that our solar system and all of the solar systems are orbiting around. And I think it's like 26,000 years orbit that the sun takes around the galactic center. So I find it really fascinating that it's a Sagittarius gate where the galactic center is, because Sagittarius is the centaur archer voyager shooting the arrow out to the horizon, and the vast horizon of space is, the galactic center shows us how deep and vast space actually is. And it's also interesting that it's gate 11, the gate of ideas and idealism, that's there because it's about channeling wisdom from like the great beyond and the archetypical memories. And so I just thought it was cool, and I've been fascinated to learn that my Neptune is on the same degree as the galactic center, as well as my south node is close by. So it's kind of like interesting. Like, what does that mean? Zooming into the present moment from this like deep, vast space-time black hole. So anyway, that's a little tangent, but kind of fascinating. Look up the galactic center if you don't know about it, because there's some pretty cool stuff there. But I digress. Sagittarius, yeah, I just have always looked at my chart and looked at Sagittarius place, and now looking just at the next upcoming week, I'm kind of like, whoa, there's a lot of energy there. A lot of things that I can learn from on a personal level, but I hope to now zoom out a bit and talk about these gates in a more general way about how you might experience them over the upcoming week. So let's get into it. So getting into the Egoist first, this is the gate that we're transiting through from Monday through Friday. Monday through Friday. And it is known in the I Ching as the taming power of the great. And the hexagram is composed of the two trigrams, mountain over heaven. So it's like heaven within the mountain. And it's also known in other descriptors and circles as the gate of the salesperson, kind of like the marketing director or the salesperson. And it's all about understanding the intentions and motivations of others and using this knowledge to make informed decisions, analyzing the situation and making choices by considering multiple perspectives. So it is a type of energy that really like brings in a lot of different ideas and a lot of different opinions, a lot of different philosophies. And that's very Sagittarius to me, because Sagittarius has just, galloped off to the horizon, kind of like gathering information about the long voyage along the way. And so it's kind of like gaining a sense of understanding of yourself through looking around and seeing the motivations of other people. And this makes someone who is very well-traveled and able to speak many languages and pick up lots of different nuances between lots of different places, can ultimately be a very good salesperson. Like a Sagittarius, think about this like centaur that's just been like galloping all around with a lot of strength and a lot of focus and a lot of knowing what they want, but like seeing the world. And they kind of gain an innate ability to influence and persuade others through having that kind of confidence and ego that's projecting out from along the journey. And This gate has a shadow side of getting maximum benefit with minimum effort or minimum work, because people with this gate use the powers of listening, and kind of absorbing what's going on, and then using that for kind of social persuasion. So these people are good at finding shortcuts and kind of hacking their way through life. And that's oftentimes how I see it described in the human design realm. So I've been curious to go deeper. I'm just like, do I resonate with being a salesperson? Is that something I feel familiar with and should let go? Let me think about this. But basically, it's a gate that emphasizes the importance of balancing our ego and our personal ambitions with honesty and integrity. And it suggests that the most effective use of your ego and persuasive abilities is when they're aligned with the greater good and the collective and truth. So that is, the salesperson, the egoist. And in the Gene Keys, this gate 26 has the shadow of pride. And that's kind of an unconscious fear. The shadows are always based on fears that we have, right? And acting out this energy through fear lens. And so this pride is like an unconscious fear that makes you distrust in the flow of life, so that you reach out with your own willpower to continually affect life. Like, you don't believe that you're going to ever have enough, and you don't believe that life will bring you what you need, so you continue to seek it outwardly and exert your will on the world. Basically, ego and competition and like competitiveness through the ego and hierarchy are all considered pretty normal and healthy in our modern society. Like this idea that if you want something bad enough, you make it happen. And as we know, though, that can lead to stress and illness, and also kind of an addiction to getting more, and like an addiction to exerting our will so that we can get something in return to that. And so they say in the Gene Keys that people with the 26 shadow dominant cannot relax. They simply cannot relax, and they fear being perceived as powerless. And they seek security by setting themselves above others through an act of will. So that sounds like an egotistical person to me, for sure. Like, they are constantly, one-upping themselves and putting other people down in order to get up. And so they can use guilt and shame and tactics like that to make people feel bad and manipulate situations. And they could also be boastful and have that kind of classic egoic pride. So that's some shadow frequencies of what might be going on this week. Tapping into, I think of ego and I'm immediately like, oh, yuck, I want to transcend my ego, or like have an ego death. I don't like having ego front and center. But I think one thing to really think about in the context of this gate is the power of ego, of knowing yourself, knowing your desires, knowing how you can influence people, knowing, how like your listening prowess and ability to see multiple perspectives can be a beautiful gift. And that they don't have to lead to that fear of never having enough and never being enough. So the 26th gift in the Gene Keys is called artfulness, and it's about similar sales and marketing energies, about kind of persuasion and perhaps even manipulation, but coming from the heart and creating an art out of it. And with the 26th gift, we are called to learn the difference between our will and our intention. So the will, the drive to do something for personal gain or for making a mark on the world, isn't something that'll ever kind of help us understand our purpose. If we continually exert and try to sell and try to manipulate and always have to be in control of the situation, then we won't, listen long enough to find our purpose and listen to our inner knowing. And so the more we listen inwardly, the more we hear our own intention. And the intention is the higher purpose inside of us, that is living there inside of us. It's like a culmination of all of the different perspectives that we have taken in throughout our lives. And they're kind of flowing together, and we're not having to exert and do anything about it. And so Richard Rudd says in the Gene Keys that when we tap into this inner intention for our life rather than an external will, our immune system actually benefits from it, and our heart feels more open because we're listening to our heart. And what the heart wants is to be open. It does not want to be closed off and saying, I know everything, I got it. So going from pride to artfulness is this journey where we kind of have to learn how to use pride and ego creatively, and it's kind of can then become beautiful. If we love selling something, whether it's a product, like something we make, or whether it's a truth or something that we want to convince people of because it's so true to us, it can be such a beautiful gift to deliver our art and our heart together through living it and embodying it and vocalizing it, and using our ego as a tool to deliver this message. And the key difference here between using your ego as a tool or as a messenger and identifying with it is that when we identify with our ego, it takes hold of us and we need to keep giving it more of what it thinks it needs. But if we say, okay, hey, ego, you're helping me communicate my heart to the world, then we can use it as more of an art form, and it can help us know which exact language to speak to our audience in the way that Sagittarius goes along and speaks different languages, gathers different stories, is on this big adventure and this big journey. The artfulness of allowing that all of that experience to create your ego as a multifaceted, multi-perspective being inside us. It is something that shines and it radiates outward, and people do want it. But when we let it grab a hold of us, we're like, oh God, it'll never be enough. I must protect it at all costs. And it just becomes this kind of animal that we have to feed. And so, we can use our ego to create art and music and dance and philosophies and things that are they are the light within us. And when we look at the hexagrams of this is mountain over heaven, can think of a mountain is this immovable force of nature. It's this giant rock on the earth, and heaven within it is it's like holding the light inside your body. It's like your heart inside your body, and it's something that, if it's shining brightly, it can provide light for, all of the world around it. The mountain is high up there, and so it can, radiate light out for everyone's benefit. But if you continue having to give your ego more and more and more and more, and, more power, more money, more affirmations, without really continuing to keep it open and listen, then it could get too big, like too much heaven inside the mountain would create an explosion, like too much light and kind of heavenly qualities inside of a rocky exterior could be like a volcano, where you not only can destroy the land and the world around you, but by building up all that pressure of like continuing to keep the ego as this static thing, but it could blow your own lid. It could like blow your head off, as well as the world around you, by kind of trying to keep a grasp on it and letting it define you. So, heart. Ego is heart. And I think I've talked in the beginning about taming the ego as a theme, and the ego being a wild animal. And so, yeah, the ego is a light inside us that is needs to be given attention. It needs to be acknowledged, and it needs to be fed. But it doesn't need to be fed junk food. My partner talked about Jackson, who's the producer of the show as well. Hi, thank you, Jackson. He mentioned when I was talking about this the other day that it also reminded him of digestion, and like heaven in the mountain being like our stomach or our digestive system, and that if we feed our digestive system what it thinks it wants right away, which is like a lot of sugar or junk food, then it's going to not treat the whole system, our whole body system, very well, and it's going to get addicted to that sugar and that junk food and like need and want more of it all the time. Whereas if you feed your digestive system nutritious food that it can absorb, and it actually like spreads the nutrients through your entire body because you're thinking of your whole body and not just feeding the hunger of the moment, then a lot more will benefit from that. And so, you know, this notion of feeding our egos is in order to tame them, in order to make them work for us rather than against us, is knowing what to feed it, right? And similarly, a wild animal, right? If you have a wild animal in your midst, like a tiger on the loose, it, you know, is going to consider you to be food, and kind of come after you unless you know, learn how to work with it and to feed it. And to tame an animal, we don't put it in a cage. We don't say that animal doesn't exist and just put our blinders on and close our eyes and say, oh, I don't have an ego. That animal's not there. We don't put it in a cage and tell it to be quiet and put it in a muzzle and say, okay, just be quiet, animal. And we don't, you know, also kill the animal, like the ego death idea. You don't just kill it necessarily, because another one will come back in its place if you just, you know, try to shut it out that way. The way to work with, you know, wild animals in our midst is to effectively tame them. And taming means that it's you are looking that animal in the eye, you are acknowledging it as a real being and a real creature with its own needs, and you are feeding it, and you are saying like, come back soon, and I will feed you again. And helping it trust that you're not the enemy, and that it doesn't have to be in fear of never having enough, so it doesn't have to come at you. And so, you know, I think about a tame deer or a tame wolf or some kind of animal in my mind's eye that has been is in cooperation and is in community with the human connections, and will come and eat out of your hand. I have this vision of like your ego coming and like eating out of your hand and being so comfortable in its ego-ness, in its light being a light beingness, and being a center of synthesis and a center of procreation, that it doesn't feel like it has to continually seek for more. So that is how I see the ego. And I've had a lot of trouble with ego with thinking about ego. And again, wanting to kill it, wanting to cage it, wanting to ignore it, wanting to pretend it's not there. And I think those are all not necessarily the way. It's like taming something by befriending it and by feeding it without shaming it, without caging it. And that's really like my deepest contemplations on that this week is, learning how to kind of be playful. Like when I look at this city level and the gene keys of gate 26, it is invisibility. And it's again about opening your heart up to life so that the microcosm and the macrocosm can meet, so that your internal longings can meet up with the external worlds and the external world's longings and needs as well. And it's kind of it has like a Quicksilver kind of vibe to it, like a little bit of a magician energy of playful divinity and kind of being a trickster, like a coyote kind of energy to this artfulness, being that we can really stand to learn a lot from opening our hearts. And I love this gate actually because I've been so confused by it and also had shame surrounding it. But I really love looking at it as like a heart energy that is distilling kind of the Sagittarian nature of adventure and like freedom and seeking new horizons and just being really open to other people's perspectives. And it's like, it's almost like Sagittarius gets to have an ego because it has sought out to be open to other perspectives. It's like ready for that. And so it has enough of if it believes itself powerful enough and focused enough to not get lost when it goes out into the world at large, it's like ready to travel. It's ready to say like, okay, cool. I got this. I can go. And I am feeling prepared and strong enough for that. And that by doing so, it's enabled itself to like listen to the world and pay attention to all of these amazing perspectives and how they intersect and interconnect. And it's almost like when it comes back home, then it's kind of like, haha, well, I know everything now. I have learned all the great wisdoms. I've read all the great books. I've met all the gurus, and I now know far more than you can possibly know. Haha. And then there's like holes poked in that because people back home are like, no, you don't. And I don't care. I actually like, so what? And it gets a little self-protective. Like the ego that is built up of multiple perspectives becomes really fragile because it's like, wait a second. None of this is my own. This ego is built up of listening and of weaving together stories from all over the place. And that makes me feel powerful. It makes me feel like I have self-awareness because I am part of the macrocosm, and my little me is one of the nodes of the entire world. And wow, that feels good, right? But then you kind of get shot down. Like Sagittarian me lived in China for a year when I was like 23, and I lived in Brazil for a year when I was 20 and 21, and I was like, I'm off. I'm just like ready to go. I feel good enough to go out and see the world. And then I came home and kind of consistently was like, oh, people don't care. They don't want to hear what I have to say. They don't want to listen to my stories about all these cool things I learned out in the world. It was more just like kind of cold shoulder, like shut up. And that's where the South Node has really come through for me, is like, wait, I was maybe being a little insensitive to the current community, the Gemini neighborhood, the moment of like, where am I in space time? And I was, on my soapbox talking about like, oh, I'm connected to the world in this way that I've discovered through all of these intersections. And so are you, though. You're part of it too. And don't you see? And then people being like, shut up. Like, you don't know the inside joke that we're talking about from earlier this summer. So like, just stop, and it kind of felt like very isolating at times, be like reverse culture shock, kind of like, oh man, like nobody here cares. But in retrospect, I'm like, oh yeah, I was hardcore South noding it and didn't really think about, the moment in question as the most important moment. Like, it wasn't about what I learned yesterday or how this tied into this other thing. It's like, what's happening right now? Shadow of Sagittarius that I have carried with me for so long is that inability to be in the present moment, because we have been in so many other places that were profound and important, and we see the interconnections between things and we see the galactic center, but it's kind of like, whoa, horsey, just like rein it in and just be here now. So if I'm to think about the gate of the egoist in conclusion, and this energy of the ego, it is like that ego can be really, it can cause a lot of damage if someone is fixated on maintaining the power feeling that their ego gives them without acknowledging that the ego is actually a composite collage of all of the influences that they have had upon them. So it's like someone with a big ego that has a lot of influence on others. If they don't remember to be humble, I guess, and, slow down, stay humble, that Kendrick Lamar song, it's like, what is humility? What is it to be humble? What is it to tame the ego? It's to remember that it is made up of so much, and it's not a singular thing that can be defined or even identified with. And that actually really leads me into the next gate, gate 11, the gate of ideas and idealism, which is a super fascinating gate to me because it is lighten up my Neptune. So I'm just like, whoa, big ideas and dreams. And it's almost hard to like hold in my hands. It feels shapeshifty and feels like water is just flowing through. And I'm like, how do I even talk about this energy of ideas? But it's similar, I guess, at its essence. The gate of ideas that we're transiting through over the weekend is about being fed by ideas, being fed by that galactic center of like streamlined information of like the archetypical world and the universe beyond, and our microcosm and our macrocosm. And it's about like tuning your dial to receive ideas from, like, channel them in from the ether, and but then not to define yourself by those ideas, and not to say like, oh, because I was channeling this thing through, or I had this great idea, to not hold it so tight that it's going to, again, like, make your ego too big for its britches and say, oh, I have the best ideas and I can't tell anybody my ideas because then they're gonna make money off of them and I'm not. Or like, I'm going to I have to do something with all of my ideas because like they're mine and I need to hold them. And so it's a similar kind of energy of like a Sagittarian energy of idealism, of being like, oh yeah, big picture thinking, I've got this. But it's like the more we hold on to the big picture, like mystery, and make it our own secret, the less true it becomes, because we are stagnating what naturally wants to move. And I love that, because Sagittarius is movement. Sagittarius is an arrow. It's symbolized by an arrow as its sigil, and it's a horse, a mythological creature horse that is moving, and it's like influencing the world, and the world's influencing it, and it's just like part of this flow of like the galactic movement and the cosmic frequency that is always in flow. And so trying to distill the ideas that are coming through you, and trying to distill the perspectives that have made you who you are into something that can be named and put in a box, put in a container, and sold as a package or kept as a secret from somebody else. That is where it gets tricky. That's like the shadow that comes out, because it is done out of fear most of the time. Like, if I think about the times where I had an idea and I was like, this happened to me. I was walking across Dolores Park in San Francisco, and I had this idea for like, it was called Art Larking. It was my first company. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a brilliant idea. That's like, it was like couch surfing for artists, where you like collaborate on art projects through a platform like couch surfing. I don't know if you remember that website where you could like look up other people's couches to sleep on as you were traveling around. And it was kind of like a precursor to Airbnb that was non-monetized back in the early days of Web 2.0. And I was like, oh my God, but like this is brilliant for artists, because, I had stayed at a couch surfing spot in Santa Cruz, and these guys were like in a band there, and they had a garage that had a pull-out couch where I stayed, and they were like making music in there, and I was painting, and I was like, oh my God, like what if I could have known that this was this art house, and I could have collaborated with them on something. And it was like this amazing kind of impromptu experience of having this like impromptu collaboration that then turned into like, wow, what if we could like make a platform for this, and this could happen. And so I was like walking across Dolores Park, and I was like talking about this idea and being like, whoa, this could be good. And then this flyer flew in my face, and it was for this company called Talent House, and their tagline was like the exact same tagline that I was wanting to use for my idea of a company. And it was just like about creative collaborations. And like, I was just like, oh no, like my world's over. I think 24 when this happened. So give me a break. But I was like, oh my God, my idea like has already been stolen. I need to like not talk about this again, because like I can't let it out, kind of thing. And since then I've had many ideas, and I have many ideas all the time, but I've learned that we can't keep our ideas secret, because it's not really about the idea, like what ends up getting made. It's about the execution. And I think there's like this overemphasis on NDAs, like non-disclosure agreements right now, and just like law kind of keeping secrets from each other all the time, because we're fearful that like someone else is going to get what is rightfully ours, or that our ego will be eroded, our sense of self will be taken away because somebody else claimed it for theirs. And dang, that's capitalism right there. That's like the toxic shadow side of capitalism in a big way. Is like this creating, like, it's something that I read recently in a book that I'm reading about about conspiracies and the difference between conspiracies and conspiracy theories. It's by a journalist who I have a total crush on named Sarah Kendzior. It's called They Knew, kind of a book about politics and the current administration, incoming administration, and just the way that information has been gatekept and safeguarded from certain people. And it's a really interesting book, but highly recommend. But in it, she talks about the difference between a secret and a mystery. And a mystery is something that is like the galactic center. A mystery is like the horizon that Sagittarius is pointing his arrow at and just aiming and saying what's out there. Like a mystery, like a horizon, is accessible by everyone and also never truly known. The answer is not guaranteed to be made clear, but it is a quest that anyone is invited to go on. And there are great mysteries out there, right, that we all kind of are invited to seek out. However, a secret is something, it could be a mystery, but it's something that someone is putting in their pocket, putting in a box, and keeping for themselves without allowing anyone else to access that. And by doing so, making it feel like a mystery that needs to be solved, because we know that if it's distilled enough to be in a pocket or in a box, there is an answer. So, as humans, I think we're all questing after answers. We want answers. We want to know why. And it's a beautiful trait within us to be curious and to wonder what's beyond that next horizon. But when there's something that has been codified or like created to a simplistic point, perhaps, but or something that's just like cloaked and shrouded, and people know that it's there, I think that makes it a mystery that people want to know more than a great mystery. They're like, they want to know the answer that somebody else has. And that plays into this whole ego trip, this whole notion of like feeding our ego in order to take care of it. Because I think we can become very egotistical by seeking out secrets all the time rather than deciding to seek out a mystery. And that's done, it's something that is kind of all across the landscape right now. I see it showing up as a secret is like the fast food or the sugar that you can feed your ego to be like, I know, I got it. I've like fortified my ego because I got the answer and I figured out the secret, right? And by questing after secrets, I think we can actually be led astray because our egos want them so badly that they put on blinders towards like what they actually want, which is just like to be a part of the mystery and to like merge that microcosm with the macrocosm. And I think that like we can start to quest and like lust after finding an answer to that mystery. And then that can allow people to kind of play us by saying like, oh, you want this bad. Well, I'm going to give you this breadcrumb and this breadcrumb. And you kind of follow this trail of breadcrumbs that someone else who perhaps has more power than you like deems appropriate for you to find out. And then you realize, wait, I'm not actually discovering any kind of answer to the mystery. I'm just following this trail of breadcrumbs that somebody else has laid out for me deliberately in a certain direction. And I saw this, in, I don't know if you've seen the movie Wicked. It's very popular, or the Broadway play, but I saw Wicked in New York when I was there, and because I just heard so much about it, and it really played into a lot of what I'm talking about with ego and like the difference between learning and questing for becoming part of the mystery, or to gain like magical powers because you are like interconnected with the mystery. Like Elphaba is kind of like, she's just doing it for her own good and not for the sense of like, looking a certain way or being part of the popular crowd or whatever. But then there is a way in which people who are seeking power but keeping themselves a secret, aka Wizard of Oz, is kind of like able to curate what people believe in based on their own desires for power. And kind of make everybody believe that someone is wicked, or someone is this, or like someone is bad, or like the only way to get the proper information is through this channel, because they are seeking to maintain power. And, power and ego go hand in hand. And so, power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely is a truism that keeps coming up, because it's like, how are we feeding that light within us? And what is the actual reason that we are seeking to keep it lit up? And why does it need to be any bigger? Like, why does that light, the heaven in the mountain, need to get bigger? It just needs to stay lit. And there's a big difference in how we go about that. Yeah, I think that in essence, like the scourge of the ego on the world, like the people who make us hate the term ego and like think of it as gross and disgusting and shameful and shady, are the people who seek to maintain power over other people through the use of that ego. And sometimes they don't know that they're doing it. Like people who are manipulating, using their ego, oftentimes might not even have an idea that they're doing it, because it's like, it's the fast food, that they're just the sugar, that they're just feeding themselves, because it feels good to continue to accrue power, and power over others feels like an easier way to get and maintain power and that feeling in your body, instead of power with. In Qigong, we talk about this a lot, the difference between power over and power with. And we can, if we align our inner power and our ego with the greater good, or not even that moralistic or lofty, but just with the greater world and other people's power, then it can exist in this way that feels like a deep resonance, like a light, like a heaven inside of you. But if we see that getting power over someone gives us that feeling, it usually is pretty short-lived, and usually comes with complications that we then have to take another action about maintaining power over the situation at the expense of someone else. And it's like, it's an addictive quality to find power through power over something. And it's more of a nurturing, cyclical, sustaining power to maintain it like a battery, through tending to it, through checking on it, through feeding it, through giving it the food that it needs, rather than the, hit that it's craving. So I've probably harped on that a little too much, but it's something that feels super prescient for me with thinking about the ego, and also thinking about so much in the world right now that seems like people are keeping secrets, holding things, holding carrots far off away from people's access, like paywalling things, putting things in containers that can only be accessed by some. It's a tactic that I've seen like all across the board. There's a big discussion in the human design community about this right now, about kind of like who has the right to deliver information and who doesn't, and who's real and who's not, and which secrets are what do you have to do to gain access to certain wisdoms, or is it available to everyone? And it's an interesting conversation to follow, because there's a lot of talk about ego in that right now, like who is gaining from what, and we kind of have to follow the money and follow the power and see what's in integrity there. And then of course in politics and just the happenings of the world, there's a lot of kind of considerations of like who's getting more powerful off of the power that they already have. And it's you can get into some rabbit holes with that. But Gate 26, the taming power of the great, is kind of about the notion that the outer is nourished by the inner, and this is the power that the great has, that we have to overcome barriers of our own ignorance to accept what this great power offers, and accepting that we are made up of lots of different people, and we cannot contain it. Lots of different perspectives and lots of different ideas, and we just have to stay open in our hearts to let them keep flowing through us. So Gate 11, again, I keep going back to Gate 26, but they're very intermingled. Heaven under mountain. The next one is heaven under earth. So we go from this like containment of the heavens as an egoic being, like the mountain is a solid structure that can contain the wisdom and the light of heaven. And then we move to earth over heaven, which is known as peace in the I Ching. And this is Gate 11. Peace in the heart is another name for it. And it is, the gate of ideas. So it can also be described as heaven supporting the earth. And it's about kind of spiritual prosperity and intimacy and success, known as harmony. And it's about this harmonious connection between the earth and the sky, like heaven being on earth. It's really, in the I Ching, the ancient Chinese I Ching, it's a very, very positive hexagram. And it's kind of about the essence of cycles of time, in the sense that it's about kind of recognizing that a deep chaos exists in nature, but humanity, by carefully responding to the rhythms and cycles of the times, can find peace in the natural world. So it's about like this beautiful harmonizing with the earth, and kind of, one example is like planting a crop in the right place at the right season, and the mindfulness of the farmer bringing harmony to the natural world of plants, and then in return prosperity to his family. Similarly, business needs to adjust to the natural cycles of different seasons, and it's only through flexibility and constant adjusting that order and growth can both be maintained. So I thought that was beautiful, as far as it being like, this is how another way we tame this egoic need to maintain control is by recognizing that by like being in continuous openness to the ideas that are flowing through, we can stay in connection and attunement to the larger world, and our bodies can coexist with the natural world in a way that is both receptive and active, but it's an ongoing, flowing, harmonious path. And it's about wise people channeling positive energy to all areas of their life, kind of like how we water all the fields as tenders to the earth. In the gene keys, the shadow is known as obscurity, the gift is idealism, and the city is light for the 11th gene key. And the shadow of obscurity basically means that we are so afraid. Once again, shadows equal fear, but we're letting our fear guide us and kind of shut off our connection to the constant flow of connection to the larger world, and the constant flow of hope and idealism, and also the constant flow of ideas that come in when we have an open heart and an open mind. So obscurity is fear-based obscuring of the light coming into us, and not paying attention and saying that, oh, like whatever I'm receiving. They say that people with gate 11 in their charts have like kind of a constant flow of like visual imagery coming through, like right brain type of activity, where this is a gate that is connected to the left eye and the right brain. And it is really interesting in that way, because it's like the ideas that are coming through during this time when this gate is active are not necessarily like linear thoughts. They're oftentimes dreams or visual imagery or smells or sights or, sounds. And they're not in a step-by-step fashion. They often can come in all at once or not at all. And having Neptune, both of my Neptunes in this gate, is fascinating, because Neptune is the like King Poseidon of the sea, the one who understands the world in a non-linear context. It's like a gas giant planet that is on the outer reaches of the solar system, and it is the ruler of the seas and the depths and the types of understanding that are more artistic in nature, more musical in nature, not necessarily solar and logical and just left-brained in nature. It's a very right-brain kind of energy that we're getting hit with this weekend with gate 11. And so, Neptune in the 11th gate feel very synced up and kind of about imagination and art. And for me, again, personal notes, because I can't help it, but my sun gate is 64, which is the gate of confusion in its shadow form, or imagination in its gift form, and illumination in its siddhi form. So I have contemplated a lot about what is imagination, what is illumination, how does that operate in the same kind of frequency as confusion? And it's so Neptunian when I think about it. And then here we are, and I'm realizing that my Neptune gate is all about imagination as well, and about the right brain, and about bringing in images and harmonizing ideas, and not trying to hold on to any of them too tightly. And that's what could confuse me, is holding on too tightly to a singular definition of something. So super fascinating. I just read a book by Stephen Forrest, the amazing evolutionary astrologer, about Neptune, and I highly recommend this book if you are into Neptune. I am currently in my Neptune square Neptune transit. So Neptune is at a square angle from where it was when I was born. And it's a transit that everybody goes through in midlife, where Neptune in the sky transits, squares your natal Neptune. So I'm like in this deeply Neptunian place, and I don't know if I talked about this before on the podcast, but I had a very deep Neptunian experience of like synchronicity when I was listening to a podcast about Neptune on the plane ride to New York, and then I like read this book about it that just came into my radar, and then I got off the plane and I had there was a Neptune poster, like Neptune flirting with the mermaids, this like vintage ad for an umbrella that was in the bathroom of my hotel. Just as soon as I was just like deep in Neptune thought, and then suddenly like this image of Neptune playing with a mermaid was right there. And then I went to a friend's house, and he had a Neptune trident, like a real one, a metal Neptune trident, but behind his door that I just happened to see because I was changing my clothes, and I was like, what is this? And it was just like, whoa, hello, King Poseidon, like Neptune, you are you're messing with me. And so I'm like a devotee to Neptune right now. So again, kind of a surprise to reveal these things about my Neptune gates and the gate of harmony, and the gate of light and ideals coming through. It was interesting because in the Gene Keys, I was listening to this chapter, and it was talking about how we only would obscure like our ideals and our flow of ideas that are coming through because they scare us. And it was talking about how a lot of times these things are coming through, ideas are coming through, or like we're channeling something that's coming through because it has something to teach us and to help us evolve. But oftentimes we have an image come through that is not necessarily linear, and it's a little bit confusing, and we can like be like, whoa, that scares me. That doesn't compute with my day-to-day life. And so we can obscure it. We can intentionally put it in the dark because we don't want to know about it. We're like, that doesn't fit with my linear notion of how the world works. It's like, but the great mystery and mysteries reveal themselves to us in non-linear ways. And so it's basically saying that like, the more we rid ourselves of the fear of the mystery and of the unknown and of not ever really finding the answer, the more we open our heart and open our mind and allow truths to come through us and change us so that we are more able to receive the next thing that wants to come through. And so it's that movement. The shadow of obscurity only lets you see and hear what it wants you to see and hear, or what your logical mind wants you to see and hear, and everything that is a little bit on the outside of that or on the fringes of that is almost kind of ignored, and it makes you feel overwhelmed perhaps. So I think in the Gene Keys, they talk a lot about the fact that a lot of us in our modern society have a very repressed right hemisphere of the brain. And as we begin to unleash the floodgates of this part of our brain, which is usually through some kind of, ayahuasca journey or a mystical technique or drugs or therapy or art, we can kind of put our entire constructed reality, and especially an ego that is not open to other perspectives, can put that in danger and make us feel really overwhelmed, where we don't have the language on our inner world to handle and integrate the results of this flood of right brain activity. And so oftentimes we can either shut it out and just say it's not there, or we can kind of identify too much with something that comes through. Like you can have something happen on a trip or on a mystical spiritual journey, and then suddenly be like, I am Jesus, or I am the Buddha, or I am this, and he came to me and I am this, rather than saying, oh no, this is just a message that's coming through from my right brain, from Neptune, from the imagination. And what they say in the Gene Keys is that the secret of the 11th Gene Key and the right brain is the secret of the archetypes. I quote, "Every single element or image that floods you from your unconscious represents an archetype, a collectively held alchemical image that reflects the process of dissolution. There are archetypes that thrill you and archetypes that terrify you. In the modern world, the mass consciousness maintains its main outlet to this archetypical world through stories, television, and cinema. You cannot escape the archetypes because they are the projections of your own psyche. But the real power of an archetype is its biophysical response within your body. These are not just images that you can view objectively, but are neurological links that stimulate your entire body via your glands. You try to avoid the particular archetypes that cause you the greatest fear, but you never can. The more you try to avoid them, the more they stalk you. Thus, you keep recreating the very situations you hate, especially in your relationships, where the archetype often assumes the form of your partner." Ooh. It says the 11th shadow is a veritable minefield of lost dreams, escapist behavior, denial, guilt, and repression. If you could just begin to trust in the images that come to you in your dreams and allow them to incubate in your imagination, you would begin to emerge from the false dream that you have placed yourself in. To awaken out of such a state is a vast experience. To step out of the illusion of the rest of the world and to tread a new kind of path that is at odds with the majority. It is a step you must one day take to move from the 11th shadow into the 11th gift. When you finally make this courageous inner leap, the dream that has been hidden inside you for so long shakes awake and introduces you to a new and boundless horizon. Haha, there's that Sagittarius word again. Horizon. The boundless horizon. And yeah, it's like the red pill, blue pill matrix situation here. That's become very popular. It's like come back again. Like you're going to take the red pill. You're going to, believe in your own truth. It's also very wicked. Again, deciding to follow your own truth instead of what is kind of being set up for you to believe, and how much bravery that takes to jump out of a window and really believe in your own knowing. It's something that is very, very prevalent right now. Kind of like, how much are we going to continue to put our blinders on and just work through this path that we think is supposed to be the way it is, and how much are we going to open our hearts up to possibility? There's a lot of that being talked about right now. The gift of idealism in this 11th realm is called magical realism in the Gene Keys. And I love that because I just love the notion of magical realism. Gabriel Garcia Marquez and the 100 Years of Solitude and all of those beautiful books I just love. But it says here, I'm just going to read a little bit more because this really got me. It says, the 11th gift is one of the great keys of our present age. The more people who can be encouraged to play with the imagery and creative power coming from the right hemisphere of the brain, the more healthy the world will become. The historical repression of the feminine power and of women in general is a direct manifestation of the imbalance within our brain chemistry coming through the 11th shadow. The imagery that lies trapped within us is the pressure of our ancestral past. In other words, these images are memories. Furthermore, these memories are not just personal memories, but collective memories that have lain repressed for millennia. Such memories exist within you as archetypes, and the moment you begin to understand what an archetype is capable of, you begin to work with the dynamic energy of the gift of idealism. Idealism is given a bad rap in our modern world. It's seen as the opposite of realism, and realism is associated with the power of manifestation, whereas idealism is generally seen as weaker. The gift of realism, however, is actually founded upon a magical truth, and I love this, that the only thing needed for magic to occur is some form of structure and an open mind, open heart. This is not in any way at odds with the true nature of idealism. What most people think of idealism is really the obscurity of the 11th shadow that is unable to manifest its dreams. For idealism to manifest out in the world, all it needs is a structure to manifest through. But, and it's a big but, first you have to discover what your true ideals and dreams really are. The moment you begin to entertain the archetypes of the 11th gift, you open a floodgate of seemingly chaotic imagery in your inner life. If you are not prepared for this and the chain reaction that will inevitably follow, all kinds of delusional problems can result. The power of working with an archetype is that you know beforehand that no matter what you feel or experience, it is a projection of your own inner psyche. For example, if you have an altered experience of becoming the Buddha or experience messianic powers, instead of identifying with this experience, you can see it as an alchemical stage in your own psychic process. The danger comes with identification. The entire notion of past lives is based upon such identification, and although it seems perfectly harmless to identify yourself with a past historical character, it actually prevents the archetype from flowing deeper inside you. Archetypes move in fractal patterns, flowing from the past to the future and vice versa. Only in the present are you safe, because the present is the only thing you cannot identify with. Ooh, it's so good. It's just so hitting my Neptune right now. It's like magic. It's all about magical realism. Like, how do we take the word idealism and say, oh, that isn't just like false idealism. It's actually like we can make our ideas real by allowing archetypical energies, memories from the ancestral past to flow through us using our right brain that's been historically oppressed by the patriarchy. And kind of, you know, one thing that I've been thinking about ideas is that people love to have ideas. They love to follow trails of thought and just like come up with like stories of how things are working and operating in the world. And it's so beautiful, but so much we are not able to do to be free in that sense, because it is seen as dangerous to the status quo. It is seen as dangerous to those that are in power, to really allow for magic to happen. And that's why witches were burned, you know. It's that it's not following the narrative of what many institutions are set up upon, which is a certain type of logic that everybody has to believe and agree to in order for the whole system to work. And so I just love this chapter of the Gene Keys and just meditating on this idealism and peace being the highest frequency of it, because it's like we need more peace in the world right now. We don't need more infighting. We don't need more people claiming to be right and picking apart each other's analysis in the comment section of like who's smarter, who's righter, whose ego is going to win. It's this, it's a completely like the revolution will not operate on those terms. It's going to operate from a distinctly different perspective. And that's a slowed down, a yin, a feminine, a receptive, a channeling of dreams, allowing for memories. It's something that we can't even quite frame within the current framework that we exist in, and it's very mysterious, and it's very watery, and it's very Neptunian, and it's very nebulous, and it is the thing that is that will allow us to change. We mustn't tightly grip onto anything, but instead let things pass through and change us. Just to finish off this chapter, because I think I should. It says, the 11th gift, as you may sense, is a world of magic and fairy tale, but make no mistake about its real power. With the right structure, this energy of idealism will manifest great things in your outer life. Through the 11th gift, all the forms of the natural world swirl within us. This is the land of the tribal totems, creatures infused with particular and potent ancestral power. In every culture, such totems abound. Even in our modern world, we use symbols and animals to represent our businesses and lives. Each one of these symbols carries real power behind it when it resonates with your inner ideal. In the world of the 11th gift, everything is a symbol of the endless pattern of the great archetypes moving from the world of the formless into the world of form, from the past into the future via the vital artery of the present. As we humans begin to think once again with our right brains, so will we bring much needed balance into the world of form. The result will manifest in the world around us as the dominance of patriarchal forms subsides and the power of the feminine pole comes into balance with the male. This is the true meaning of the time we are living through. It is why so much ancient tribal knowledge is once again pouring into the collective consciousness of our planet. It is through this 11th gift that the true art of magic is once again returning to the world. So, heck yeah. These are the ideals that I like, magical ideals. So, keep those ideas flowing. Last thing I'm going to get into, because I know I've just been going and going on this, but the last piece of the puzzle this week is the full moon in Gemini on Sunday, the 15th. And I want to mention this because I love looking at the wheel of the year through the polarities, and it's not just like one gate after another. It's like every time there's a full moon, we visibly can look up in the sky and say, oh, hey, there is light shining from the opposite season. Like we are in Sagittarius season and the moon is in the opposite part of the sky from the current season. So every full moon that happens in every season is in the opposite part of the opposite sign from the season we're in. And Gemini and Sagittarius are opposites. One is a lofty philosopher and guru on top of the mountain, and one is a chatty social butterfly that's hopping from party to party in their town that they live in. And they're both on the axis of communication and the axis of knowledge and wisdom. And, Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, which is about expansive communication, expansive knowledge, truth, like the capital T truth out there. And Gemini is like the lowercase truth of like, what's my truth? What's your truth? Is there a truth? Like, it's like, what's your story? What's your story? And it's ruled by Mercury, which is the messenger between worlds and the, kind of the trickster god of communication and commerce. And so they're different types of energy, but they both are concerned with how we know things and what we know. And so we're in this contemplation in Sagittarius season about ego and about ideas and ideals and about how we have gathered our sense of self through our journeys and our voyages. And then across the sky in Gemini on Sunday is the moon hanging out in the gate of caution, gate 12. And this is a Gemini gate that is all about like knowing when the appropriate time to speak is and knowing to who's the appropriate person to speak to. And it's a little bit of a kind of like the cool kid gate. It's a cautious gate. So, you hear the word caution and it's like, what should I be worried about? But it's more like in the sense that this mercurial Gemini, creature is being a little bit cautious. They're not just like spilling all their ideas out to whoever will listen. They're definitely not getting up on a soapbox or a podcast and just like spewing their ideas out into the world. Gate 12 is this opposite energy of like, oh yeah, I have ideas. I have lots of good stuff that you want to hear about, but I'm going to kind of hold it until the timing's right, until I feel like talking about it and to the right person. And so, yeah, Sagittarius sometimes just like sprays it all out there, like the interconnections for all to hear. But the full moon in gate 12 across the sky is saying like, hey, keep those ideas flowing through. Don't obscure them. Don't stifle them. Like live in your, gift frequency. Keep the ideas coming. Stay open to your dreams and the archetypes that are flowing through you. But you don't necessarily need to put it all out there. It's a reminder. Full moons are always mirrors, and they're reminders of the opposite energy along the same axis that we're in. And this one is just saying, choose your delivery. Who would it be beneficial to talk to about the ideas that are coming through? Where would the right place, right time be? Like, are you tired? Do you not want to talk about any of this right now? Like, you don't have to make up a carousel post and share it on Instagram if you don't want to. You don't need to put it all out there into the world. Like, this moon is saying, let's remember that so much of our self-discovery lies in the conversation and the dialogue that is Gemini, that is allowing for a specific interaction to show us about the larger picture, because that's what the larger picture is made up of, right? It's not made up of, this like codified source material that is just like there and transmitted. It's like it comes from lots of conversations, lots of independent variables, lots of real human people out there who give you a slice of their wisdom and the slice of their perspective in passing. One other way that Gemini comes through in this same kind of tendency or the same way is not necessarily only by like real life conversations you have with other humans or other beings in the world, but also by recognizing that, the whole is the sum of its parts. And Gemini would be the energy of that mercurial energy of digging into like all the different gates that are in our chart, or all of the different placements that are in our chart, and having a language like astrology or human design that is a map to allow us to ask questions to a part of ourselves. It's like parts work in psychology is very popular, but astrology is a great way to access parts work by saying, I really want to focus on like my Neptune, like how are my dreams manifesting, in what house and what gate and what sign is my Neptune coming through, and to not say like, oh my God, I have to understand this entirety of this whole chart or this complex system, but also not by saying like, I'm going to understand it by only learning my big three or only learning my profile type and strategy and authority. Like, we're not simplifying in Gemini. The full moon does not encourage us to just make it the lowest common denominator or like the easiest, most digestible thing. It encourages us to have a specific conversation with this specific part of our chart. So with this full moon in Gemini during the season of Sagittarius, which is about getting to know the big picture, we can take this as an opportunity to say, like, what piece of me have I been neglecting, and do I want to learn a little bit more about? And you can, read about that and get deeper into that one part of you that you might not have given yourself permission to before, because you're like, well, I have to know the whole thing. I have to understand like the synthesis of the whole picture in order for it to be valid. And I think that's my problem sometimes with human design, is that it can go into this kind of like, well, follow your strategy and your authority and don't even worry about the other stuff. And of course, people are allowed to take, to decipher the information the way that they want to. But in some circles, there's a lot of gatekeeping as far as how we're able to access that. And in astrology too, like in any system of thought, there are some times where people who are like, this is the pathway, this is the way you have to do it. And here, let me break it down from you, because I already know. So I'm going to just break it down for you. Like, this is the best way to learn. When really it's like these systems are just, they're representations of the great wheel of the universe that we can decide which avenue to enter, which path to go down on our own. And this full moon in Gemini gives you the permission slip to do that. I would really say, like, Gemini, for all that it's presented me with issues in the past, when I look at my North Node in Gemini, I'm like, oh, it's about really just loving on the small moments, the present moments with another person. Like, what was that thing that made me and so laugh so hard? What was that little piece of very specific information about one part of my chart that like opened up the bigger picture about the whole thing in a way that learning about a distilled version of the whole thing never would have done for me? So it's like, go into the details, go into the specifics, and go in the direction that you're being called. Like, what energy feels good to you to investigate right now? What person feels good to pick up your phone and call right now so you can get whatever it is that they're putting down? So yeah, this is the like anti lowest common denominator full moon. I'll call it that. And if you're interested in going deeper into a certain specific part of your chart, like going cross-sectionally into all the energies that make up like a certain planet in your chart, hit me up. I don't have my website live yet because I am so lazy on that regard. It's coming soon. But hit me up on Instagram at astrosomatics, like send me a DM, and I would love to dig into a part of your chart with you that feels uninvestigated. That in mind, this full moon, I'm going to. Sunday is, going to be definitely a day to think about this polarity between Sagittarius and Gemini, between like the loftiness and the philosophy and the galactic center and the present moment. And like I just said from the Gene Keys, is that beautiful quote that the present moment is the only place that cannot be identified with or held. And that is why it is so powerful. So I will leave you with that. There's a lot to chew on there, and a lot of references, and I would look forward to hearing how you all are feeling over the course of this week. I really, really love hearing from you. And that's also, I just wanted to give a shout out to one of my listeners who I reached out to with a question earlier this week. And I'm really excited to be connecting with this person because they are the same incarnation cross as me, like have the same sun and earth gate. And so Cody out there, thank you so much for engaging with my questions this week about kind of like things that are going on in human design and, your thoughts on that, because what it encouraged me to do was participate in dialogue and think about perspectives that I haven't learned yet, and that and think about why like the community is important to me, and why all of you who are listening to this are important to me, and your voices are important to me, because it is that connection that makes this worth doing. And it's that dialogue and expansion, like heart expansion of adding more perspectives in, that creates a certain amount of illumination and the good kind of ego, which is like, reason for keeping on doing what I'm doing. So thank you, Cody, for helping me remember that this isn't just about like a quest for information that I'm doing, but it's a quest for connection as well. And so with that being said, let's connect. My Instagram is Cycles of Time Podcast or astro.somatics, and you can follow me on Substack at astrosomatics.substack.com, where there's, it's a pretty fun community, and there'll be a lot of really fun, cool offerings in the new year as we start the wheel again. I'm adding on a lot of cool experiential bonuses and ways to get involved with this material in a personal way. So join me there on Substack and subscribe to stay tuned for that. I'll definitely be talking about it more as the podcast continues. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Music or anywhere else you listen to podcasts, just click a 5-star review. It would really help me out in getting this word out to the larger world. And thanks, y'all, for being here and for being in this dialogue. Have a beautiful full moon in Gemini and a beautiful week of egoism and idealism ahead. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye.